Hi, I'm Leslie from Chocolate Baroque, and today I'm going to show you how to mount and cut out your grey rubber stamps on cling cushion. Today I'm going to be using this rubber stamp A5 size called Flowers From You by Craft Creations, and we're going to be mounting it onto some of the cling cushion. This has two sides. This is what I call the front side, which has got a paper backing. And this paper backing is what is holding the adhesive in, which you're actually going to stick your stamps to. The reverse side of this has got a shiny surface which is actually a film. When you peel this away, this is what actually allows you to put your stamp onto an acrylic block or to cling to your stamp platform. And that will be the one that will also be used when you store it into your stamp storage. Okay, so the way to start first is, this is A4 and we have A5 stamp. I'm going to take my piece here, and I don't want to use it all. You buy this in A4 sheets, so you don't actually want to use it all in one go perhaps. So then just peel it back very slowly. It's very, very sticky, and this is what will make it permanent to your rubber stamps. Once this is on, it won't come off. Okay, so I peel it back roughly about halfway, and then I'm going to introduce my stamp. Now make sure that you're using the back of the stamp to stick down onto the cling cushion. Believe me, in haste I have actually used and stuck it down that way. If you do that, I'm afraid you've ruined your stamps. So lay it in place. Now the cushion is slightly larger than the actual stamp itself, so I try and put at least two edges, that's the top and the side edge, as close as I possibly can to the cling, like so. Okay, and it lays perfectly flat. Now you now need to cut down this edge, because the other half of this can be used for another A5 stamp or two A6s. So what I tend to do is I tend to push that back over to protect my scissors, and I will just run another finger mark down there slowly, and that's what I'll use to cut it out. So with a pair of good sharp scissors, Tim Holtz ones are very good, or whatever else that you have, as long as they've got a sharp blade, then you just need to cut down here almost up against your stamp. And all I'm doing now is just protecting, and that's my other half that I can use to mount for another stamp. Okay, we'll lay that to one side, and now I have my set of stamps. I also, when I cut out, I tend to take the cling off, the film off the back of the cling, and the reason for that being that it's actually harder to try and cut through film. If you've tried to cut through thin plastic when you're cutting through something else, the scissors can't resist, and you may not get a clean cut on your stamps. So you will peel this back off as well. And this is what we have now. We have our set of stamps all ready to cut out. Two things you need to remember when you're cutting your stamps out, and the first one is, don't go too close to the outline. I tend to leave approximately a 2 to 3 millimetre gap around the edge. And the second thing is, hold your scissors straight. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you hold them at an angle, either that way or that way, you can undercut or overcut the mount underneath. And what happens then is the stamp has nothing to resist on underneath when you come to stamp it. Okay, right, to stamp. I tend to cut out the largest image first, and I tend to separate it from where it is, giving quite a wide berth. I never try and trim my stamps exactly straight away from the actual plate itself. The reason for that being, it's much easier to go with a single stamp and go closer to the edge than try to do it with the larger plate here. So we'll set that aside for the moment, and now I shall take my stamp and start from a convenient spot. I tend to start from what I call the base of the stamp, work at one side and down the other, but that's preferential to me. You will probably want to do it your own way, and you will find your own level when you come to do it. So I will trim that off first, and then I've no stickiness. Keep that out of the way. And then I start, and using this like a piece of paper, I am cutting round the stamp as so, and I'm actually turning the rubber, as you would if you were fussy cutting with paper. I'm turning the rubber into the scissors, rather than making the scissors go around the stamp. Okay, so there's the edge. Okay, turn it round and continue to turn the rubber and move it in as so. And when it comes to things like that, okay, you won't be able to turn the rubber. Now do this and cut up to that guide, like so. Okay, oops, didn't trim it quite close enough. There we go. And then I continue down the side of my stamp all the time, turning this stamp, keeping my scissors straight so that I'm not undercutting. Okay. Now that would be quite alright for stamping purposes, but if you wish and you feel as if you want to cut it a bit closer in these places, then you just nip in with the scissors like so. And I tend to cut off pointed corners, and the only reason for that is to stop them sticking to. Sometimes pointed corners will attract ink, so I tend to take pointed corners off. There we go. And that is your finished stamp. If you want to do words, we'll go for a word here. And I'm just going to take one of these words across the top. I tend to cut. It's easier if you actually cut from the bottom, so get the bottom straight, and that way you'll make the stamping straighter. Look at the point of the scissors, don't look as to where you're cutting, look at where the point of the scissors is going. You're more likely to get a straight cut by doing that than if you're actually looking at where you're actually cutting. And again, trim that out, like so. Put that to one side. Cut the long parts off first. It's much easier to do the long parts of the wording and the sentiment, and then come in and do the two shorter sides, like so. Now that will be fine. As you can see, you've got a straight edge along the bottom there. It doesn't matter if the bottom, because that's where you will line up from to use it when you stamp it. This is my own personal preference. I tend to cut corners off like that, and again it's just to stop corners from actually sticking to any ink. And there you have it. That just gets thrown away in the waste. There's your stamp, there's your word, and that's how to do it.